Hello again, guys. We're back at it again with another Cruze video. This is a 14 Cruze diesel model. Today we're going to be replacing the rear rotors and brakes. So if you take a look in here, these are the originals, by the way. This vehicle has about 125,000 miles on it, and these are the original. So they finally need replaced. I chose the original OEM rotors, ACDelco. There's your part number. And I got these off of idparts.com. These are the pads, ceramic pads. I don't know who makes these pads, but here they are. Maybe once I take this wrap off, we'll be able to see some sort of identification. So we'll go ahead and get started here. We're going to break these lug nuts loose. These are 3/4 or 19 millimeter will work. So go ahead and break these loose and jack the car up and get started. Okay, do the same thing to the other side, and then we'll jack the rear up. Okay, so this is where I like to put my jack at, in the back, to jack up the whole rear of the car, and then I can put the jack stands underneath on each side. So you don't have much room to actually pump and jack up, but it works. Okay, now we can slide our jacks under each side. Just be careful. Okay, once you get your jacks into position, then you can slowly lower the jack. Just go slow. Okay. That's it. Now we can go ahead and remove the wheels. Okay, let's take a look here. Yeah, the pads are pretty thin. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this caliper first. Okay, the first step is going to be to remove this top bolt to hold this caliper on. This is 10 millimeter. You can easily get a socket on here with an extension. That's what I did. I broke this loose already. And down here, you'll need a 13 millimeter open-ended wrench to get around this here. I broke this loose already as well. This is actually a noise vibration damper. I've never seen one of these before. It's my first time doing this on this Cruze. So I assume all Cruze models have it. This is a diesel model, so. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So you'll need to set this aside and then remove this bolt here. And now the caliper should be able to break free here. Get something to hang this. You can't let it hang by this brake line, put a lot of stress on this line. So look around up above, maybe there'll be somewhere to hook something, a bungee cord or something. That's usually what I do. There's a couple holes here. I'll see what I can come up with.
Okay, if you take a look here, this is what I did. So I have a bungee cord, and there's two little holes here, one up here and one there. So I just looped mine around and did that, and it's safe and secure and out of the way. So you can choose to do whatever you want to do, as long as it won't move, and you know, you don't want to pinch these lines or anything. Okay, the next step is going to be to pry these pads out of this bracket. I usually get a screwdriver and slowly pry them out like so. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove this caliper bracket. There are two 15 millimeter bolts, one right here and one on the bottom right here. Now these are in there pretty tight. You might have to use a breaker bar on these to break these loose. Yeah, I knew it. They probably had some sort of Loctite on these. If you guys can see that. See that little bluish color? So, yep. Okay, now this bracket comes right off. Set that aside. And now we can remove this rotor. You can see this star-shaped bolt in here. This is a Torx head. That requires a T30 socket to remove that. So go ahead and do that next. Okay, when you go to try to loosen this screw, the rotor is going to want to spin on you. So what you need to do is get something that won't damage the threads
So I'm using the end of this hammer. See, when you go to loosen, the rotor is going to move. So this will hold it still while you loosen the screw. Hopefully you get the idea. Okay, the screw is now removed. Just set this aside, don't lose it. Now this rotor should come right off. If it doesn't pull off, you have to get a hammer and beat around it like that and slowly work it loose. Just make sure you wear iron ear protection. Okay. Rotor slides right off. Set that aside. And now what you want to do is clean up any rust around here and make this as clean as you possibly can so that the new rotor sits on there nice and flat. So that'll be the next step. So I have this brush attachment here for my little drill. So what I'm going to do is just go around here and clean all this rust off. And be careful not to go against these threads too much. You don't want to screw these threads up. But take your time with it and get it as clean as you can. Okay, after you get this as clean as you can, get brake parts cleaner and spray it all over the surface there of that hub. And then let that soak. That'll clean it up pretty good. Alright. It's fast drying, you don't have to wipe it. Unless you have some heavy dirt on there as you want to get clean. Okay, so now we can go ahead and get our rotor. Now these have a nice coating on them, a anti-corrosion coating. So we do not need to spray any brake parts cleaner on this surface. There's no oil on here or anything. So this is ready to mount right on the hub. Just make sure this part here lines up with this little hole here on the hub. Okay, now you can go ahead and get that little T30 torque screw and reinstall. What I like to do is put a light coating of anti-seize on the threads. So I'm going to do that first. This is what I like to use on the threads. It's anti-seize by Permatex. So I have a little bit on the threads there. Now I can go ahead and install this and put it back into place. Now we start this by hand first. This doesn't have to be too tight. I don't know the exact torque spec for this little screw. It can't be much though. Alright, so that looks good and ready to go. Now we can go ahead and install the caliper bracket. Okay, before we install this bracket, it's a good idea to lube these pins. So I removed this one already. All you do is pull it straight out and then this rubber boot will come off. So just wipe this clean, and Permatex sells this caliper lube, and just wipe that on those pins and reinstall. You also want to check these for any abnormal wear. These look to be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the lube and install. Alright, as you can see, I already slid the rubber boot back over, and the pin has a generous amount of lube on it, so we'll go ahead and slide it right back in this bracket and push it all the way in, and then you'll have to slowly work this rubber boot back over this lip here. You can see that lip there. You want to get that over top of that. Okay, I have this reinstalled. You can see it moves back and forth nice and smooth. Just do the same thing. Whoop. Do the same thing to this other pin, and then you can go ahead and install this bracket. Another thing, if they don't give you new clips for the brake pads, you'll want to clean these up really well. Make sure there isn't any dirt or anything in here. They didn't give me new clips in the kit with the pads, which I'm surprised at. They usually do. So I just cleaned these up as best as I could and make sure that the pads slide in there nicely. So here's the other pin. This is the bottom pin. This has some sort of rubber piece on the end here. So just keep note of that this one, if you pull them both out, this is the bottom one. Maybe it has something to do with that noise canceling device that goes on the bottom. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that. Okay. It's nice and smooth. Now we can install. Okay guys, I have this caliper bracket installed. Make sure you torque these to 74 foot-pounds. Now we can install our pads. So take the pad with the squealer and make sure that goes on the inner part here near the piston. And then take the other pad without the squealer and mount that on the outside towards you. Alright, now that that's done, we can go ahead and install the caliper. But first, we need to compress this piston. And you can't use a C-clamp. This actually has to twist in clockwise. So what we need to do is use one of these guys right here. This disc brake caliper tool. This is by Lyle. There's the part number, 25,000. First, let's remove the cap on the brake fluid reservoir here. Now we can go ahead and proceed. Okay, the adapter that we are going to use is 2A. Okay, this is my setup. You'll need a 14mm socket for this part. That's if you have this allow setup. And then there is the piston. So what we need to do, I'll show you this. So you're going to have to do two things. Hold this part with the crescent, and then up top you'll use the ratchet to compress the piston. You just keep spinning until the piston goes the whole way back into position. And that's it. Remove everything. It doesn't take much. Now you can see the piston there is fully depressed. Now if yours is dirty or anything with the rust, I suggest cleaning that off before reinstall. Okay, now we can install the caliper. So take your bungee cord off, or whatever method you use to hang the caliper.
take this noise dampening device and thread that back into place. And then the 10mm bolt up top.
All right, that pretty much completes it. I'll have to get the other wrench and tighten this up, and then reinstall the wheel. The lug nuts get torqued to 100 foot-pounds, and then the same thing for the other side, guys. Just take your time with it and be careful and safe as always. And please subscribe and check out my other Cruze videos. See you in the next one, guys. Take care.